Good morning everyone, it's Annie with Manor Farms Homestead. I'm back here in our back raised bed garden area and I'm getting ready to plant some onions. So I'm going to take you through the whole process of raising onions this year. The first year that I did onions, I had a great harvest. Last year we had some really low temperatures during the winter and a lot of my onions didn't survive. So hopefully this year we do better with our onions. I am putting them back here in these back beds where I have the ability to put some sort of cover over them if we're projected to have prolonged temperatures below about 17 degrees. 17 degrees is about the temperature that, the lowest temperature that onions can withstand. So last year we had some 11-degree temperatures and that's when my onions really got hit hard. So let's go and take a look at these beds and get started. So these are the beds that I grew tomatoes and peppers in over the summer. And I just let the chickens, some calves, and sheep come through here after we were done harvesting them. And they pretty much just cleaned this whole area out for me. There's some stalks still coming up that will get pulled out. But other than that, I have not done anything with these beds. The chickens love to come through here and kick up the dirt and find little grubs and stuff. So we did treat these beds for grubs before we're going to plant these onions because the grubs will devastate an onion patch. I'm going to go through here and top these beds off with some fertilizer because onions are heavy feeders, and without fertilizer you're not going to get much of an onion harvest. They need a lot of nitrogen, particularly towards the end. The more green tops you get on them early on, the better they're going to turn out. All right, so I'm going to go through here and just pull up these remaining little pepper tomato stalks that didn't get eaten. I'll throw these into a compost pile. Little stuff like this, I may just leave in there to continue to break down. I'm not going to do a lot with this dirt with regard to tilling it up or anything. Other than the little bitty areas that I break up to put the onions down. We do have it set up out here to irrigate, which will be nice because onions do require a lot of water. So feeding them, watering them is really the biggest factors in getting a good big size onion at the end of your season. So I got a layer of Triple 13 fertilizer down on all the beds. I'm going back over that and I'm putting out just an organic fertilizer and I'm spreading that relatively heavy. That won't burn the plants and it'll slowly break down through the season and continue to feed them. We'll have to come back and fertilize them again with some nitrogen throughout the season, but this is a good start for your onions while they're just getting established. All right, so we've got a layer of Triple 13 lightly sprinkled on all these beds. We've got a layer of organic fertilizer heavily sprinkled on all of these beds. We're gonna go ahead and start putting our onions in. With onions, you do need to research your particular area and make sure you're growing the correct onions for your area. Here in East Central Alabama, we are in the short day onion zone. So all of what I've ordered are short day onions. So I've got a variety. Texas Early. These are excellent what they make. I have not planted the Southern Belle Reds before. I've done Red Creole and most of those bolted before they made a bulb. So We'll try these red ones. They're supposed to be resistant to bolting early, so hopefully these will do well. I order my little starts from Dixondale Farms out in Texas every year. They do great. You can start your own onions in trays from seeds, but you need to do that probably in July to plant them in November. Here in the South, in the short day onion zone, where we are very warm, have pretty mild winters, we plant onions middle of November. That's for a harvest of them probably late May, early June. So these will put out all their green tops throughout the winter, and by the spring, when the days start getting a little bit longer, they'll start to bulb. They only bulb with so many hours of sunlight. So if you get a long day onion and you plant it down here in the South, we never reach the amount of sunlight, daylight hours that is necessary for those type of onions to make a bulb. So that's very important to know your zone, what you can grow. So you have long day onions that you can grow up north where they get more sunlight during the summer. Intermediate onions can grow kind of the middle of the country, and then your short days down here in the South. When you're planting onions, you want to plant them about 6 inches apart so that they have room to make bulbs. So the little bitty starts are tiny little onions like this, but they'll take off pretty quickly. And you just want to get your bulb portion of it down in the ground. I'm actually going to, in the little area where I'm going to plant these, I don't want any of that triple 13 to burn them, so I will mix it a little bit with the soil. You can plant them a little closer together if you want to come back and harvest some as green onions and kind of thin them out as they grow. But this is about where I'll plant them, and I'll space them out so they have enough room to grow me a nice 3 to 6 inch bulb in there. And I had talked to you about how we lost a lot of onions last year due to the cold. So by planting my onions back here in these beds where we have these trellises, I have the ability to come in and bring a tarp or sheet over this area, clothespin it to this, so that we can create some extra warmth, keep a little bit of the frost off of them if we're projected to have extended periods where it's really cold. So I'm hoping to grow a good crop of onions this year and make preparations so I don't lose them like last year. The first year that I planted onions, I think the coldest we got was about 19 that winter, and they did great. Now with onions, we've talked about them being heavy feeders. They are also quite susceptible to fungal disease throughout the season. And a lot of times the fungal disease really doesn't cause any problems until it's near harvest time and you try to store these onions. And if they're infected with fungus, they won't store. They'll start rotting right away. So with onions, you do need to keep them sprayed for fungal pest about every 2 weeks. A natural remedy for that is copper, a copper spray. Mix a little detergent in with it, and that helps it stick to the onions a little bit better. But you can use that. There's also some biological fungicides if you're looking at specifically organic stuff, and you can alternate between that and the copper. There are also non-organic means of protecting against fungus if you want to use that. Whatever you're comfortable with in your type of gardening. Last year, another thing that I did not stay on top of as well with my onions was the fungicides. So I did have very limited ones that made it through the cold, and then quite a few of the ones that did make it were infected with fungus, so they didn't really keep very long. Hopefully, for sake of videos this year, I'll have a nice crop to keep you updated on throughout the growing season and at harvest time. Now, in these beds, we had chickens, sheep, calves, all of that back here, but mainly we've just had the chickens out here for the last few months. And they've done a really good job of keeping this soil aerated and cleared out so weeds didn't grow in here. They've also spread their manure throughout the beds, so that's helped to enrich the soil with a lot of nitrogen, because chicken manure is very high in nitrogen. Chicken manure is considered a hot manure, so it needs to compost down before you use it. But this pretty much has sat out here in the elements with a small amount of manure going in throughout the latter part of the season. So we're fine. This doesn't need to sit any longer. I did get all of the chickens out of here as of yesterday, because you cannot garden and free range your chickens in the same beds, because they would just come through here and decimate all of our onions. So we're just gonna keep going like this all the way through our beds, and I'll come back and show you when we're done. Okay, so we've gotten all of our beds planted with the onions. This one on the end has Southern Belle. That's a red onion. The middle bed has our Texas Early. They're a white onion. Texas Early does come in a yellow variety as well, but we got the Texas Early white variety. And then here on the end, we have our Texas Legend. These get really big and they store about as well as any of your short day onions. As a general rule of thumb, most of your short day onions are sweeter and don't store quite as long as some of the long day onions that are grown up north. Typical storage time on your Texas Legend is 3 to 4 months. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 months on these Texas Early. They're a sweet onion, kind of like a Vidalia onion. And then the red onion also is going to be about 3 to 4 months, kind of like your Texas Early. Some of your long day onions that are grown up north will store 6+ months. So that is a difference in the type of varieties that we're able to grow down here. So we'll keep you posted throughout the long growing season on onions and show you their progress. I'll come back and do a video when we're going to spray them with a fungicide, and when we're going to fertilize them again, and just kind of keep you updated as they grow. One of the things that really stood out to me while I was planting these onions was how nice this soil has broken down. So we first planted into these beds in the spring, and this was a garden that was made out of predominantly cow manure compost. We put in some rabbit manure and chicken manure, but the bulk of it was cow manure. And it just has broken down super nicely over the past year since we put these in. Now, if you're unable to get all of your onions into the ground when your order arrives, the best way to store them is just in the little bunches that they come in. Just throw a little bit of soil over the roots, and they'll do well for several days like that. So this bunch I'm saving for my dad. He'll probably pick them up this evening, but in the meantime, I'm just storing them in the ground like this.